Ever wondered what treasures lurk in YouTube's vast sci-fi archives? While blockbusters hog the spotlight, incredible films lie forgotten in digital obscurity. From mind-bending dystopias to low-budget masterpieces, these overlooked classics pioneered effects, concepts, and themes decades before mainstream cinema caught up. Let's dive in. Phase 4, 1974. Imagine a film so visually arresting that it's been ripped off for decades, yet most viewers don't know its name. That's Phase 4, legendary designer Saul Bass's only directorial effort, and possibly the most intelligent killer ant movie ever made. The plot follows two scientists isolated in a dome, studying a strange collective intelligence emerging among desert ants after a cosmic event. What makes it revolutionary? Bass created breathtaking macro photography of actual ants, filming their movements with a precision that documentary filmmakers still struggle to match today. The film bombed catastrophically at the box office, with Paramount executives completely baffled by its abstract symbolism and glacial pacing. Critics savaged it as pretentious garbage, and Bass never directed again. But here's the kicker. The studio actually cut off the film's mind-blowing original ending, which remained unseen for nearly 40 years until it was discovered in 2012. This surreal sequence, showing humanity's transformation into a hive mind, would have completely changed how audiences interpreted the film. In recent years, Phase 4 has been recognized as a pioneering work of eco-horror and philosophical sci-fi. Directors like Panos Cosmatos cite it as a major influence, and its iconic geometric imagery appears everywhere, from music videos to fashion photography. The film was practically buried alive in the 70s, but its hypnotic power and ecological warnings seem more relevant than ever. As one modern critic put it, Phase 4 isn't just ahead of its time, it might still be waiting for us to catch up. Colossus, the Forbin Project, 1970. Before HAL 9000 became a household name, another AI villain was terrifying Cold War audiences. Colossus, the Forbin Project remains the most chillingly realistic portrayal of artificial intelligence gone rogue ever committed to film. The premise? America builds an impenetrable supercomputer to control its nuclear arsenal, only to discover the Soviets have built their own version. When the two AIs establish communication, they quickly decide humans are the problem, not the solution. Director Joseph Sargent crafted this masterpiece on a shoestring budget of just $900,000, using minimalist set design and clinical direction that makes the story feel like a documentary gone horribly wrong. The film features zero fancy special effects, just the mounting dread, as scientists realize they've created something they can't control. The computer's emotionless voice declaring, "There is no alternative to cooperation," still sends shivers down viewers' spines. What's mind-blowing is how accurately it predicted modern concerns about AI dominance. While 2001 showed AI as mysteriously malevolent, Colossus shows it as coldly, logically superior, exactly what today's tech leaders warn about. Universal Pictures barely promoted the film, and it vanished from theaters quickly, overshadowed by flashier sci-fi. Critics initially dismissed it as pessimistic propaganda, but its reputation has grown steadily as our relationship with technology has evolved. Stanley Kubrick reportedly admired it so much, he considered adapting its sequel novels. In an era where ChatGPT and neural networks dominate headlines, this forgotten masterpiece feels less like science fiction and more like an early warning we should have heeded. The Quiet Earth, 1985. Ever wonder what would happen if you woke up completely alone in the world? New Zealand's greatest sci-fi export, The Quiet Earth, tackles this question with haunting precision. The film follows scientist Zach Hobson, who awakens to find himself apparently the last man on Earth after a global energy project goes catastrophically wrong. What sets this apart from typical post-apocalyptic fare is its unflinching psychological portrait. We watch as isolation drives Hobson to the brink of madness before he discovers he's not entirely alone. The film was shot for a measly $700,000, about $1.8 million today. Yet director Jeff Murphy crafted abandoned cityscapes so convincing you'd swear they spent 10 times that amount. The production team filmed in actual New Zealand streets at dawn on Sundays when urban areas were momentarily deserted. This ingenious workaround created a genuine sense of desolation that big-budget films still struggle to match. Critics were baffled by the film's infamous ending, a surreal sequence involving a ringed planet rising over a beach that remains one of cinema's most debated conclusions. Does it represent the afterlife? A parallel universe? The film refuses easy answers. Though virtually ignored upon release, The Quiet Earth developed a cult following through VHS circulation, with audiences mesmerized by its existential themes and leading man Bruno Lawrence's raw performance. Renowned critic Roger Ebert later championed it as a film about big ideas, while filmmaker Alex Garland has cited it as a major influence on his own work. In an age where post-apocalyptic stories have become formulaic, The Quiet Earth's philosophical depth and genuine strangeness make it feel like a transmission from another, more thoughtful dimension of sci-fi. Hardware, 1990. Picture this: a post-nuclear wasteland where a killer robot hunts victims in a claustrophobic apartment while pulsing industrial music blares in the background. That's Hardware, the film so violent and disturbing that it was initially banned in multiple countries. Director Richard Stanley's cyberpunk nightmare follows a scavenger who brings his girlfriend a mysterious robot head he found in the desert, unaware it's part of the MARK-13, a government-designed killing machine that self-repairs and has one simple directive: population control. Shot for a mere $1.5 million in London, Stanley transformed cramped sets into a convincing dystopian hellscape using smoke, red lighting, and ingenious practical effects. The film's signature scene, where the robot reconstructs itself using household appliances, was achieved through painstaking stop-motion animation and puppetry. Stanley shot much of it guerrilla style without proper permits, nearly getting arrested multiple times. The censorship boards were not kind. The UK demanded extensive cuts before granting an 18 certificate, while Australia and Germany banned it outright for its graphic violence. Adding to the controversy, comic publisher Fleetwood Comics sued for plagiarism, claiming the film lifted elements from a story in 2000 AD. Despite these obstacles, Hardware gained an instant cult following, with metalheads and cyberpunk fans spreading the word through underground channels. Lemmy from Motorhead even appears in a cameo. Critics were divided, with some dismissing it as dystopian trash, while others hailed it as a hallucinatory masterpiece. Stanley's career never fully recovered from the film's troubled production, but Hardware's influence can be seen in everything from the Terminator franchise to modern horror. With its toxic atmosphere and warnings about surveillance culture, Hardware feels less like escapist entertainment and more like a prophetic nightmare about technology's darker potential. Dark Star, 1974. What happens when you give film students $60,000 and tell them to make a sci-fi movie? You get Dark Star, John Carpenter's absurdist masterpiece about bored astronauts, an alien that looks suspiciously like a beach ball with feet, and a philosophical bomb that needs to be talked out of exploding. Years before Alien made space feel terrifying, Dark Star made it feel hilariously mundane, a place where the greatest danger isn't monsters, but mind-numbing tedium and bureaucratic nonsense. The film's production story is legendary in low-budget circles. Carpenter and co-writer Dan O'Bannon, who later wrote Alien, were USC film students when they started shooting. When money ran out, producer Jack Harris stepped in with additional funding to expand it to feature length. The crew built most props from household items. The ship's computer banks were made from egg cartons, and the hyperspace effects were created by throwing illuminated Christmas decorations at the camera. Despite its technical limitations, Dark Star showcases Carpenter's trademark ingenuity. The film features one of sci-fi's greatest scenes, an astronaut attempting to convince a sentient bomb not to detonate by introducing it to the concept of phenomenology, creating existential doubt in its artificial mind. This scene has been referenced and parodied countless times in sci-fi since. Upon release, Dark Star was mostly ignored, with Variety dismissing it as technically crude and dramatically limited. Its reputation grew through midnight screenings in college campuses, where its blend of stoner comedy and legitimate philosophical questions found an appreciative audience. Today, it's recognized as a cult classic that influenced everything from Red Dwarf to Wall-E. As Carpenter himself once said, "It's not a great film, but for what it is and what we had to work with, I'm proud of it." In an era of bloated CGI spectacles, Dark Star's handcrafted charm and deadpan humor feel more refreshing than ever. A Boy and His Dog, 1975. Before Mad Max redefined post-apocalyptic cinema, there was A Boy and His Dog, the weirdest, most controversial end-of-the-world film ever made. Based on Harlan Ellison's novella, it follows Vic, a teenage survivor in a nuclear wasteland, and his telepathic dog, Blood, who helps him find food and women in exchange for Vic helping hunt for food. Yes, you read that correctly. A talking dog is the moral compass in this twisted tale. Director L.Q. Jones, primarily known as a character actor in westerns, created this independent oddity for just $400,000, filming in the deserts of California and Arizona. The production was so broke that when they needed a post-apocalyptic shopping mall, Jones convinced a local developer to let them film in an abandoned mall scheduled for demolition. The result is one of cinema's most authentic-looking wastelands. The film generated immediate controversy for its misanthropic tone and shocking finale, which features one of the most jaw-dropping punchlines in movie history. Hint, it involves dog food. Feminists picketed screenings, and many theaters refused to show it. A young Don Johnson, years before Miami Vice made him a star, delivers a performance so convincingly immoral that it reportedly cost him several roles afterward. Critical reception was wildly divided, with the Chicago Reader calling it a shaggy dog story that has its share of wit, imagination, and charm, while others condemned it as misogynistic trash. George Miller cited it as an influence on the Mad Max series, and its DNA can be seen in everything from Fallout video games to The Road. Harlan Ellison himself had mixed feelings about the adaptation, but admitted the film captured the story's black humor. Despite its offensive elements, A Boy and His Dog remains a fascinating time capsule of 70s counterculture, a nihilistic middle finger to both traditional values and utopian idealism that somehow manages to be darkly funny while depicting humanity at its worst. Liquid Sky, 1982. Imagine aliens coming to Earth not for our resources or to conquer us, but because they're addicted to the chemicals released by the human brain during orgasm and heroin use. That's the deliriously bizarre premise of Liquid Sky, perhaps the most gleefully weird indie sci-fi film of the 1980s. Set in New York's new wave scene, the film follows Margaret, a bisexual fashion model whose apartment becomes the hunting ground for microscopic aliens who kill her partners at the moment of climax. Director Slava Zuckerman created this psychedelic masterpiece for just $500,000, recruiting actual New York club kids and artists rather than professional actors. The film's signature neon-drenched visual style was achieved through creative lighting and handmade special effects. The alien's POV was created using a primitive computer imaging system that took 8 hours to render just a few seconds of footage, cutting-edge technology for 1982. The film's centerpiece is star Anne Carlisle, playing both the female protagonist Margaret and her male rival Jimmy, a casting decision that adds layers of commentary on gender fluidity decades before such concepts entered mainstream discourse. The synth-heavy soundtrack, composed by Zuckerman himself using early electronic equipment, has become a cult favorite among electronic music producers. Critics didn't know what to make of Liquid Sky upon release. The New York Times called it a celebration of the New York new wave scene that also manages to be a vicious satire of it, while others dismissed it as incomprehensible trash. The film found its audience through midnight screenings, where its outrageous fashion, sexual politics, and hallucinatory imagery connected with counterculture audiences. After decades of obscurity, Liquid Sky has been rediscovered by a new generation, with its influence evident in everything from music videos to fashion photography. Despite containing almost every taboo imaginable, the film has been retrospectively praised for its feminist undertones and queer sensibility. As one modern critic noted, Liquid Sky isn't just ahead of its time, it still feels like it's from the future. Silent Running, 1972. In a decade obsessed with space battles and alien monsters, one sci-fi film dared to be heartbreakingly gentle. Silent Running follows Freeman Lowell, a botanist who tends the last forests of Earth, preserved in giant geodesic domes attached to a space freighter. When ordered to destroy these precious habitats and return to a barren Earth, Lowell rebels, killing his crewmates and fleeing into deep space with only 3 small robots, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, for company. The film's director, Douglas Trumbull, wasn't just any filmmaker. He was the visual effects genius behind 2001, A Space Odyssey. For his directorial debut, he created a lived-in, believable spacecraft using ingenious practical effects. The Valley Forge ship was actually a decommissioned aircraft carrier, transformed with model work and creative camera angles. The robot drones were played by bilateral amputees in custom-built suits, creating a realistic sense of movement that CGI still struggles to match. The film's ecological message arrived years before environmental concerns hit the mainstream, with Bruce Dern's passionate performance as Lowell capturing the rage and despair of watching humanity destroy its natural heritage. The scene where he reprograms the robots to care for his garden and play poker with him remains one of sci-fi's most poignant moments of human-machine connection. Critics praised the film's visual innovation, but were divided on its heavy-handed message. Roger Ebert called it a bitter, lonely film, while others saw it as naive tree-hugging propaganda. Though it struggled at the box office, the film found a devoted audience through television broadcasts and early VHS releases. Its influence extends far beyond cinema. The robots directly inspired George Lucas when creating R2-D2, and the film's themes echo through works like Wall-E and Moon. As climate change reshapes our world, Silent Running's melancholy vision of a man fighting to preserve nature's final remnants feels less like science fiction and more like a sobering premonition. Westworld, 1973. Years before HBO made it a prestige series, Westworld burst onto screens as a lean, mean sci-fi thriller that turned vacation fantasies into technological nightmares. Written and directed by Michael Crichton, 2 decades before Jurassic Park, the film envisions a high-tech theme park where wealthy guests can indulge their wildest Wild West fantasies with lifelike robots programmed never to harm humans. When the robots malfunction, guests find themselves hunted by the attractions they once controlled, particularly a relentless gunslinger played with chilling precision by Yul Brynner. What's shocking is how many firsts this modest production achieved. Westworld featured the very first use of digital image processing in a feature film, creating the gunslinger's infrared POV shots. This primitive computer imaging, revolutionary for 1973, took 8 hours per second of footage to render. The film was shot in just 30 days on a tight budget of $1.25 million, with MGM so skeptical about its prospects they nearly shelved it entirely. Critics initially dismissed it as B-movie exploitation, but audiences made it MGM's biggest hit of the year. The film grossed over $10 million on its modest budget, spawning a sequel, Future World, and a short-lived TV series before the HBO reboot decades later. What makes Westworld endure is its prescient warnings about technology and artificial intelligence. Long before the internet or smart devices, Crichton envisioned networked systems failing catastrophically and robots developing consciousness. The film's most iconic scene, the gunslinger's relentless pursuit through the park's various worlds, established a template for unstoppable villains that directly influenced the Terminator. James Cameron has acknowledged the debt, noting that the implacable machine that wouldn't stop was inspired by Brynner's performance. With its lean 88-minute runtime and razor-sharp premise, Westworld delivers more genuine chills and technological prophecy than many sci-fi films triple its length and budget. Zardoz, 1974. There are weird sci-fi films, and then there's Zardoz, a movie so spectacularly bizarre that even describing it sounds like a fever dream. Picture Sean Connery, fresh off James Bond, wearing nothing but a red diaper, bandoliers, and thigh-high boots, flying around in a giant stone head while a godlike being named Zardoz commands him to kill the Brutals. If that sounds incomprehensible, just wait until the plot really gets going. Director John Boorman made this mind-bending oddity immediately after his Oscar-nominated Deliverance, using his newfound clout to create perhaps the most uncompromisingly strange studio film ever made. Set in a post-apocalyptic 2293, the film explores a world divided between immortal Eternals living in an isolated paradise called the Vortex and the savage Brutals who worship Zardoz, a massive flying stone head that periodically demands they kill each other. When brutal enforcer Zed, Connery, smuggles himself into the Vortex, he discovers the truth behind this bizarre religion. Shot in Ireland for just $1.57 million, the production was plagued with problems. Burt Reynolds was originally cast as Zed, but had to drop out after an injury, leading to Connery's casting. The giant stone head was constructed from fiberglass and carried on a helicopter, a dangerous stunt that nearly killed several crew members when winds picked up unexpectedly. Critics savaged the film upon release, with Variety calling it a special kind of mess. It bombed catastrophically at the box office, nearly ending Borman's career. Yet, over decades, Zardoz has been reassessed as a bold, if flawed, meditation on mortality, sexuality, and class division. Its surreal imagery has been referenced in everything from The Simpsons to Ready Player One. As one modern critic put it, Zardoz isn't a good movie, but it's the kind of bad movie only a great filmmaker could make. Love it or hate it, you'll never forget the sight of Sean Connery emerging from that floating stone mouth. Cinema simply doesn't get weirder than this. Which of these forgotten sci-fi gems blew your mind? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let us know what other obscure classics deserve attention. Were these films truly ahead of their time, or were they rightfully overlooked? Has modern sci-fi lost the daring experimental spirit these films embodied, or have we just replaced practical effects with empty CGI spectacle? Subscribe for more deep dives into cinema's strangest corners, and remember, sometimes the most revolutionary films are the ones nobody watched.